What's up guys, it's Endymion, and I have finally completed Elden Ring, having spent almost 130 hours in the lands between and obtaining the coveted platinum trophy in the process. In one of my previous videos, I claimed that Elden Ring was too easy. Well, let me just retract that statement now and say I was dead wrong. And that this video will show that Elden Ring definitely has some insanely crazy bosses in it after all. Anyway, these are the 6 hardest bosses in Elden Ring that to me were nightmares to face. Of course, there will be plenty of spoilers here, so if you haven't finished Elden Ring, well, you've been warned. And now, let's begin. Starting off is the maddening hulk of flesh known as the full-grown falling star beast. This thing is brutal, especially for me, because around this time in Elden Ring, I was running a mostly strength-heavy build and only began dabbling in faith at this point a little. So Falling Star Beast is literally kryptonite for melee-centric builds, as its attacks are laughably ridiculous and the amount of shaking, slamming, and carnage this alien-like beast is capable of dishing out was borderline insane for me. I did end up killing it, of course, but it was not a fun fight at all. Thankfully, this enemy only appears twice in the game to my knowledge anyway. I mean, that's how many times I ran into it, but it's probably somewhere else, and you know what? I'm good. I don't want to know where it is. I hate this thing. Let's just keep going. In 5th place is Malekith the Black Blade, who is basically what would happen if Artorias and Sif from Dark Souls did the Dragon Ball Z fusion dance and became one. Malekith's first form, it's easy enough. He just uses bestial faith attacks, and for the most part, it's not that bad. But then comes the second phase, and this is where the SHIT hits the fan, with Malekith becoming incredibly fast, super acrobatic, and stupid levels of strong that getting hit by a mere slash or two could spell death in an instant. Not to mention that his dark flame attacks reduce your maximum HP in battle, meaning the longer this fight continues, the lower your overall survivability becomes. Malekith was one of the only bosses in the game I had to summon my Mimic Bro because he was just insane for someone who focuses mostly on melee combat. Speaking of melee only combat being brutal, let's talk about number 4. I hated this fight. Introducing Godskin Noble and Godskin Duo. This entry, I'm coupling these two fights together since in the Apostle version, you're fighting the deadly thick boy on a 1v1, but in the Duo version, it's Pinky and the Brain at the same time. Of course, since the Duo fight basically requires you to summon your Ash buddy to help unless you're insane at the game, it made that version of the fight much easier. But for some reason, with the 1v1, I didn't summon anything, and good God, it's brutal. Godskin just never lets up, ever. His lunges are literally insane, his fat rolling attack is complete BS, and he barely staggers, and his dark flame magic has weirdly stupid tracking at times. Just screw this guy, and I guess the Duo as well. How something so big can move so fast, it's just beyond me. What really makes Godskin so deadly is he's one of those bosses where things can go bad very quickly for you if this guy even begins to land his hits on you. Godskin is almost everything I hate in an enemy. He barely staggers, he's on your ass constantly, and that stupid belly fat attack, unfortunately, it does get worse, my friends. And in 3rd place is the true form of the Lord of Blood, Mog. Basically, Mog is like a freight train that never stops his onslaught, as his attacks, they just keep coming, and there seems to be an almost no end to his pain when I was fighting him. His blood flame magics, they just carpet bomb the arena, they block off paths for you to escape through, and his unrelenting forceful use of magic, coupled with a bizarrely far-reaching trident melee attack range, makes Mog a pain at whatever range you fight him at. Yet again, this was one of those fights where I had to summon my Ash buddy because Mog was pounding my cheeks into oblivion. Actually, all the other bosses from here on out, I summoned my Ash to help because the late game of Elden Ring houses some of the most insane fights From Software has ever created. So yeah, Mog was nuts, but this leads me to the second hardest fight in the game. And coming in second place is the final boss of Elden Ring, Radigan, and the Elden Beast. After all the trials and tribulations I suffered through to reach the summit, from Godfrey and his WWE moves and fat pale guys rolling me into non-existence, I honestly thought the final boss would have no surprises for me. Dude, was I wrong, because Radigan is insane. His attacks track like glue to your character, and he has weird charging patterns, and he's equipped with counters to basically anything and everything you can throw at him. What makes Radigan so infuriating is that he's borderline impossible to stagger. Well, for me anyways, it was. I mean, I fought him with the Ruin's Greatsword at +10, the Blasphemous Blade, Claymore, nothing would stun him at all. And then if you're getting too close, almost always would spell disaster for me when Radigan would just finish a combo only to deliver his sequel beating immediately after. Honestly, this second placement is solely because of Radigan. The Elden Beast, while it can definitely hit hard, it's really big and it has a lot of openings. So really, if you're able to overcome Radigan, the Elden Beast isn't anything too crazy in my opinion. But just Radigan was crazy enough, and the fact you need to kill him every time before facing off against the Elden Beast, man, it just makes it worse. In my opinion, Radigan is the hardest From Software final boss phase version, whatever you want to call it yet. Even Sword Saint Ishin didn't give me trouble like this guy did, or Gwyn in Dark Souls even. Radigan is everything From Software is known for, wrapped in a disgustingly brutal and aggravating fight. But of course, there can only be one, and I'm sure, like many out there, you already know what my number one is, and the top spot goes to, unsurprisingly, Melania, Blade of Miquella. Melania is the quintessential example, in my eyes anyway, of From Software almost going too far off the deep end with mechanics and difficulty. It's bad enough that Melania sports one of the most insane combo chains in the history of the Soul series to dodge, but then you couple that with her ability to build up Scarlet Rot onto you and her Radigan levels of being in your face, it just makes Melania the ultimate Souls-like boss. And as if her first form wasn't insane enough already, From Software decided to punish us all even further by giving Melania a second super form where she sprouts beautifully grotesque wings of decay that releases butterflies and moths, which actually makes this one of my favorite boss cutscenes that FromSoft has ever done. But even though that's all beautiful and great, good God, she is the definition of insanity. Oh, did I mention that Melania can, on top of all of this and her brutal techniques, that she can actually heal herself every time she hits you. So you could be doing really well, only to slip up, and the punishment isn't just the loss of your heals, but now you're in a worse position, and Melania now has healed all the carnage you just managed to inflict on her. Melania is truly one of, if not the hardest bosses From Software has ever made, and it's not even up for discussion in my opinion. She's like if Lady Maria from Bloodborne got infused with the entire level of Blighttown from Dark Souls, and it went supernova with Sword Saint Ishin levels of complexity all at once. Melania is undeniably the hardest boss in Elden Ring, and it's not even remotely close, and with how hard Radigan was for me, that's saying something. She truly is peak From Software difficulty. And that, my friends, is my list of the 6 hardest bosses in Elden Ring. I could have made this a top 10, but to be honest, the other bosses in the game, I found kinks in their armor or patterns pretty efficiently, but these 6, man, they just slap me around like a redheaded stepchild. If you love Elden Ring, I have some content on the channel already, and I'll have more in the future, such as lore dives, so consider subscribing, liking the video, and sharing to help me out. Thank you, it gives my life meaning. And thank you to my patrons for their support as always, it means a lot to me, and I'm Endymion. Thanks for watching, here's to more Elden Ring and Mass Effect content coming soon. I'll see you in the next one.